What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, where we talk about optimizing life, money, and happiness one how to at a time. And this week on the show, it is Thanksgiving season. Thanksgiving is tomorrow if you're watching this in real time. We've got a ton to be thankful for, including college basketball being back. Repping the Illinois hoodie. You know, if you've been friends with me or followed me for any amount of time, that I eat, sleep, and live Illinois basketball, but that is not why you are tuned in today. You are tuned in because we are talking today about how to use our time wisely. And I think that the holiday season and the Thanksgiving time of year is a good time to talk about a study that I found not that long ago that basically surveys folks over the course of their lifetime and dissects how they spend their time. And it's really fascinating what we found. So we're going to switch over, talk about it with the visuals in front of us. So this is the graphical version of the survey that I found. It's the American Time Use Survey, Our World in Data. And so the first graphic I want to show is time spent with friends. And for the most part, these graphics go anywhere from, your early teens to the theoretical life expectancy of an American. And this graphic in particular, I think is a little surprising in the sense of how dramatically and quickly the time spent with friends drops off really after you get out of school. And so, you spend the most amount of time with your friends when you're in high school, and it goes off a cliff ever since. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, if you've got a friend in your life that you've not talked to in a while, there's no better time than to reach out to somebody and say, I'm thankful you're in my life. It's good to talk to you. Let's get together soon, and actually make some time to do it, because there are people in your life, I promise you, that fill you up, and you leave the conversations or the meetings more refreshed than you went into them. And those are the type of people you need to spend time with. Highly recommend you do it. So we'll go to the next one. It's a similar type of graph. And this one is time spent with coworkers. And I think this one's fascinating because this defines the rat race of existence as an American. Basically, you ramp up your career and you spend your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and most of your 60s spending as much as 3 to more hours a day with coworkers. And obviously, this changes if you've got different circumstances with your employment. There's some people that you probably spend all 8 hours with, but it's about this idea that your time spent with people starts high and goes low. And so if we continue this sort of thought process, we can go into time spent with children. And this one hits hard on me because I have a couple of them now, that the majority of the time that you spend with your children in hours per day happens in this window of basically when they're young. And I've heard in a different study before that basically by the time your child has graduated from high school, you've spent 90% of your waking hours with that child. And so if you're in a situation where that bothers you, try to be a little more intentional with the time that's spent with your child. I know that after this recording is over, I'm going to go read some bedtime stories. And so hopefully you can find something practical or comparable in your life if you have children. We'll keep going. The next one is time spent with your partner. And this pretty well follows the typical life progression of, somebody basically starting to date at some point. And then there's a good segment of time where you spend 3 hours a day or so with your partner, and then it ramps up in the later years. And then it goes off a cliff. And I think the logical explanation for that is that over time, and when you get into your 60s, you become more dependent on one another, and then it falls off a cliff for rather obvious reasons. I think that your time at the end becomes finite, and so it's an opportunity to reflect on this. And as we continue to push forward with this, it's fascinating that the time spent with family, again, this goes back to the time spent with children graph, is that it's really high in your early years, and then it really levels off to on average about an hour a day for the last 5 decades of your life. And if that doesn't sit well with you, you are the change that you need to see in the world, and you have the opportunity to change this. And again, everybody's family situation is a little different. I'll use the family dynamic liberally here. And your family is essentially the people that you care most deeply about. And I'm not going to put any labels to that as to whether or not they're in your nucleus or slightly outside. I've got some family that I consider complete brothers of mine that stood up at my wedding, the whole bit. They're family, and the fact that on average you don't spend a lot of time with those people, maybe there's an opportunity to fix that. And so the home run of this graph in this study is this graphic right here. And that basically, from the time that you become an adult until the time you die, you consistently spend more time alone. And that triggers a whole bunch of different responses for me. First and foremost, I'm thinking to myself, well, I like being alone and having time to myself to think. Then I think to myself, I love spending time with people that I care about. And so what's the striking balance to that? And I think we ultimately go to the final graph is that in time spent, if you take all of these graphics and you layer them all onto one another in the same context, that over time you spend fewer amounts of time with the people that you care about and you spend more time alone. And so if you don't like the way that this graph looks, I encourage you to be the person that changes it for your family tree, your friendship circles, and all of the above, because this is an opportunity to think hard and strongly about how you're spending your time and ultimately making it better for you, better for the people around you. That's going to bring this episode of the show to a close. Hopefully you take this to heart. You don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're spending too much of your time in ways that don't align with your values or your goals, or ultimately don't align with what you want to be in the world or the change that you want to see in the world. And ultimately that probably has something to do with making an impact in somebody else's life. So I encourage you to be thinking about that. And, there's a lot of different aspects and ways that you can do this, but primarily is with your time. So if you got any value out of this episode, leave me a comment down below. Let me know that. As always, you can subscribe to be the first to know about new content each and every week. And as always, if you are looking to make a real estate transaction in the Indianapolis market, I can help you with that. Minus the blah, 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 blah. I promise, that'll be fun. Get in touch with me in the comments down below or at indiedwell.com. We can interact there as well. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.